Hot dog is my favorite meat.
Woo! It's some!
All right, welcome to the Young Turks. Cenk, Uygur, and Kasparian with you guys, and we bring with us a tiny little bit of hope. It's in the story, it's in the show, it's gonna happen, it's tiny, but it springs eternal.
We're also gonna bring you old men reading raunchy passages from raunchy books.
Indeed, that as well. Hope and raunch.
Elmer Fudd is gonna make an appearance today.
He is, but you know what? There's always twists on the Young Turks. Because I'm gonna defend him partly.
No, I'm gonna definitely.
Okay, so we'll get into that. It's gonna be fascinating. Defense of Elmer Fudd. All right, forward.
We begin with a sham impeachment inquiry.
These are allegations of abuse of power, obstruction, and corruption. And they warrant further investigation by the House of Representatives. That's why today, I am directing our House committee to open a formal impeachment inquiry into President Joe Biden. This logical next step will give our committees the full power to gather all the facts and answers for the American public. It's exactly what we want to know, the answers.
House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, once thought of as a young gun in the House of Representatives, is seen here digging his own political grave as he takes orders from the likes of Matt Gaetz to call for an impeachment inquiry into Joe Biden, knowing full well that the two House committees that have been investigating Hunter Biden and trying to tie his foreign business deals to Joe Biden have failed to provide a shred of evidence. He knows all that. But he's moving forward with calling for an impeachment inquiry. Now, there is a distinction between an impeachment vote and an impeachment inquiry. We'll get into that distinction in just a moment. But yes, Republican House Speaker Kevin McCarthy has in fact endorsed an impeachment inquiry into President Joe Biden and his family's foreign business dealings. Again, even as these two House committees investigating him have failed to turn up any evidence of wrongdoing. Now, sources said McCarthy plans to tell his conference in a closed-door meeting this week that the impeachment inquiry is the logical next step in order to obtain bank records and other documents from the president and his son, Hunter Biden. McCarthy has made it clear there will be a vote for the impeachment inquiry, but as of now, he doesn't appear to have enough Republican members of Congress who will approve this. So the way this works is Kevin McCarthy can't just simply snap his fingers and be like, I declared impeachment inquiry. No, the members of Congress have to vote on that. Now, the question is, are there enough Republicans who are in favor of moving forward with this sham probe? And so far, it appears that is not the case. McCarthy needs 218 House Republicans to vote to authorize the impeachment inquiry. And so far, we know of a few that are against this. Two of them that come to mind include Congressman Ken Buck and Congressman Don Bacon, both Republicans, both think this is silly. Buck will be receiving a briefing though from the House Oversight Committee staff, which has failed to turn up any evidence incriminating Joe Biden this week on the investigations in an effort to convince him to support this politically motivated sham impeachment inquiry. McCarthy plans to say that House Judiciary Committee Chair Jim Jordan and House Oversight Committee Chair Jamie Comer have uncovered enough information that necessitates the House formalizing the impeachment inquiry in order to obtain the Biden's bank records and other documents. So the argument here is, look, we haven't really found any evidence, but calling for an impeachment inquiry, voting in favor of that will allow us to obtain more financial records that could potentially turn something up in our little fishing expedition.
Yeah, first I'm gonna start goofy with his manner of speaking, which I'm amused by. So everybody's got their weirdo ways of speaking, like Biden likes to lean in and whisper.
And whisper.
No joke, no joke. Okay, McCarthy does this thing which he thinks is dramatic. He's like, and I'm here to tell you.
He does do that.
Right. and also, okay, all right, dude, all right, I got it, Mickey Doyle. Anyways, and we're looking for the answers. All right. So now onto the substance. Oh, right, there is none. So, look, the Republican politicians have lost the thread. And yes, it's partly because of their base, or a giant part of it is their base. And so they don't want any stinking evidence. They don't want facts. They don't want logic. They don't want reason. They just want to impeach Biden. That's why Marjorie Taylor Greene proposed impeachment on day one, and she's still bragging about it today. No, that means that you don't have any evidence when you say, let's impeach him, because I don't like him on day one. And by the way, did they get financial records? They already got a ton of financial records. And it showed what? Nothing. Big fat nothing burger. Then you ask Republicans about that and they go, yeah, but did you know Hunter Biden, like he's no, yeah, we know, guys, we know. He's gas board, right? He doesn't know Ukrainian gas. We were among the first shows to say that clearly, obviously, don't be ridiculous. He sells sham art. Yes, we know that, The connection to Joe Biden is what you need. They're like, well, he called him a bunch of times. It's his son, you schmucks. Calling him a bunch of times is not evidence.
I know, Cenk, but have you considered Biden bad?
I hadn't. Oh, let's impeachment. Wait, you know what we need, Anna? An impeachment inquiry. Okay.
No, but I gotta be honest, I love this. It's nice to be on the other side because I remember during the Trump years, I remember the hyperbolic segments that Rachel Maddow would do that would make one think that there's a bombshell ahead. And then the bombshells never came. And now we're experiencing the same thing on the other end of the political spectrum with these attempts to incriminate Joe Biden. The Devin Archer testimony before the House Oversight Committee was supposed to be groundbreaking. It was supposed to be the bombshell tying Hunter Biden's foreign business deals to Joe Biden selling his influence. No evidence turned up. Devin Archer actually testified the opposite of that.
Yeah, so look, there's two things I really want to say here that it's first to distinguish between the Biden and Trump thing. So there was a lot of circumstantial evidence about Trump and some Republicans say, you know what, I think there's circumstantial evidence about the connection between Joe and Hunter. They call, and sometimes they call during Hunter's business meetings. Joe Biden doesn't know that, but maybe he knew. Maybe there's tons of it's very circumstantial. In Trump's case, his sons are going around going, "Oh, we get all our money from the Russians, right?" And then
Don Jr. literally said that.
Literally, right? And so, tons of evidence that appears circumstantial about Trump. Here's the giant difference. When Mueller came in and said, yeah, the Russians tried to interfere with the election and here's the evidence on that, here's what they did on Twitter and Facebook, and it amounts to this much. And I looked at it and I thought, it doesn't amount to that much, okay? But more importantly is Trump connected to the interference in the election.
Right, was Trump colluding or was he part of a conspiracy along with the Russians to meddle in our elections? Right. That was not proven.
Yeah, so I thought that there was a good chance that could be the case. MSNBC thought it was already proven 1,000 times over, right? But when Mueller's report came out and they said, no, he was not connected, I said, okay, I instantly believe it. That's it, I'm done with it. I'm done with it. Because the facts came in, the jury came in. The difference is, do you care about facts or don't you? If you say, whether you're MSNBC and go, I don't care, Joe Trump is still Russia, interference, 2016, Hillary was robbed, or if you're Republicans and you say, I don't give a goddamn about facts, I don't need a single shred of evidence that the election was stolen, I don't need a single shred of evidence that Joe Biden and Hunter Biden are collected, okay, that's the way you roll. But that's not how objective reality rolls.
Correct.
And so you're wrong. Right now, there's zero evidence connecting them. And the fact that that doesn't bother you doesn't speak well of you. But I will add one last thing for now, which is this helps Joe Biden.
It does.
And if you're a Republican and you think, oh, we're gonna get him. No, you're not. Look, the one thing that'll help you is it'll help you win the election because Joe Biden is such a terrible candidate. But the minute you do this BS impeachment of Joe Biden, you know what the Democrats are gonna do? Same thing the Republicans did. They're gonna rally around their candidate. And so right now, they're busy going, that's it. We're building the wagons, circling them. And Joe Biden is the greatest thing since sliced bread. So you couldn't help Joe Biden any more than doing this.
Now let's get to what I would argue is the most amusing and entertaining element of this story, which is House Speaker Kevin McCarthy in a leadership role, essentially bowing down to Republicans in the House like Marjorie Greene and Matt Gaetz. So what is the whole point of having a leadership role or that enhanced position of power when really you're taking orders from the likes of Matt Gaetz? And that's what this is really about. Kevin McCarthy, I would venture to say, really had no interest in calling for an impeachment inquiry because he knows there's no evidence. But there has been so much pressure from people like Representative Matt Gaetz that he folded. And the reason why he folded is because of how he became House Speaker to begin with. He agreed that he could be House Speaker as long as basically Republicans in the House would be able to do away with him if he doesn't go along with their little schemes, right? And so he wants to maintain that power, and as a result of not wanting to lose that power, he's just listening to Matt Gaetz and what Matt Gaetz wants. So again, this is really about maintaining power for McCarthy, power that doesn't really make much sense because he really has no control of these situations, he's just taking orders. Now, hours after McCarthy made his announcement, Matt Gaetz still attacked him,
Of course.
And I wanna give you a little taste of that, let's watch.
Now, moments ago, Speaker McCarthy endorsed an impeachment inquiry. This is a baby step following weeks of pressure from House conservatives to do more. Mr. Speaker, dust off our written January agreement. You have a copy. Reflect on the spirit of that agreement and build on the start that we had moments ago. Begin to comply. No continuing resolutions, individual spending bills or bust, votes on balanced budgets and term limits, subpoenas for Hunter Biden and the members of the Biden family who've been grifting off of this country, and the impeachment for Joe Biden that he so richly deserves. Do these things or face a motion to vacate the chair.
I mean, McCarthy, you still call yourself the young gun? You're taking orders from Matt Gaetz? Okay, like,
yeah.
It is so embarrassing. It really is. And look, in that spiel, Matt Gaetz mentioned a few things that I do think make sense, right? Like separate bills on policy issues. Like I would like to see Democrats actually try to champion that as well, instead of including legislation with a bunch of poison pills that we absolutely despise. But he's muddling the message. At the end of the day, Matt Gaetz is calling for the impeachment of Joe Biden, knowing full well that there isn't a shred of evidence incriminating him, despite how long of an investigation that's been taking place by two House committees.
Yeah.
It's so dumb.
So Kevin McCarthy's not really protecting his power, he's protecting his status. There's a difference because he actually has no power, but the good news is he's never had any power. Before, he took all of his orders from the donors, and so he's just a placeholder. The minute he disagrees with the donors, he's shown the door and they get a new servant, right? Now though, he's having to take orders from his donors and MAGA. And so that puts him in a difficult position because he has two bosses instead of one. How does he maintain his status as the theoretical Speaker of the House while pleasing both of those masters who he serves like a servant, okay? So now Matt Gaetz is pulling a Republican on other Republicans. You know what happens to Democrats when they agree with Republicans? It's a giant mistake. We've told you that for 20 straight years. The minute you agree with a Republican, they're gonna want more. It's never enough. Never enough. Kevin McCarthy could impeach Biden today, hold a vote, send it over to the Senate, and then get on the ground and kiss Matt Gaetz' shoes. And Matt Gaetz would say, "You didn't do enough." Okay,
that's exactly
because it's Republican 101. It works. Demand more, demand more. And what drives me crazy is that the parties are polar opposites in both going in the wrong direction. Whereas the Democrats never demand anything.
Correct.
Never demand a goddamn thing, especially progressives. And then the Republicans demand maximalist positions. And what does it do? It pulls the Overton window all the way to the right, which is the whole point of this sham to begin with. They all work for corporations who donate to their campaigns. There's a person here or there. Matt Gaetz doesn't take corporate PAC money. Ro Khanna doesn't take corporate PAC money. But 98% of them, they're all playing theater. Now, and that leads to why Kevin McCarthy has gone down this disastrous path. So the Republicans tried this against Bill Clinton and it backfired. Now that was a long time ago and it's a different country, different situation now. So I'm not saying that it's gonna backfire with this base, it's complicated, right? But the reason that he is acting today is because the extreme Republicans in the House were saying, give us impeachment and give us a government shutdown. Now, McCarthy's donors don't want a government shutdown. So in order to appease his donors and the MAGA base, he chose impeachment rather than shutdown. And then as soon as he did that, the MAGA base said, no, we want both.
Of course they want both.
Yes.
They wanted both from the very beginning. How stupid is he? How stupid is he? How stupid is he? The dumbest people in the country are running the country.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so look, they're gonna shut down the government. Okay, like that's the best prediction I think anyone could make in the realm of politics today. But aside from Matt Gaetz and the pressure that he's putting on Kevin McCarthy to do stupid things that will politically backfire, I want to just also note that there's fighting among Republicans in regard to who should take the most credit for pressuring McCarthy to commit political suicide. So let's go to graphic 4 here. I'm gonna start with Matt Gaetz's tweet, or X, which was re-X'd by Marjorie Greene. He wrote, when Kevin McCarthy makes his announcement in moments, this was prior to McCarthy's announcement, of course, remember that as I pushed him for weeks, Kilmeade said I was speaking into the wind on impeachment. Turns out the wind may be listening. Marjorie Greene didn't like that because she wants to take credit for a sham impeachment inquiry.
No, I'm dumber than you.
Correction, my friend. I introduced articles of impeachment against Joe Biden for his corrupt business dealings in Ukraine and China while he was vice president on the very first day in office, which is what you like to reference, Cenk. She continues, you wouldn't co-sponsor those and I had to drag you kicking and screaming to get you to co-sponsor my articles on the border. Who's really been making the push? So you guys are both morons, and so great, have at it, continue being morons. And look, I'm not just saying that with no evidence. I have been sitting and waiting. I've been open-minded to the idea that maybe there was some corruption. Maybe Joe Biden did sell his influence. I don't know. I mean, they're making the accusation. Let me hear them out. Let me wait for the evidence. They have failed to prove any of it. I'm not some loyal fan or follower of Joe Biden's. I don't care. He's a politician. Politicians do dirty, shady things all the time. So again, open-minded to the accusations, but we need to see the evidence. I haven't seen the evidence. They haven't seen the evidence. This is nothing more than a political stunt that I have a hard time believing is gonna help them in any way.
Yeah, so look, the Democrats are looking for Trump's corruption, which there are plenty of and in different examples, but in all the wrong places like Russia, right? And Republicans are looking for corruption from Hunter Biden to Joe Biden, even though the laptop, their beloved laptop, says we can't promise anything from Dad because he won't do it, right? The evidence is completely to the contrary, right? You know why they're misdirecting you and distracting you in this way? Because the actual corruption is the campaign contributions.
In the halls of Congress,
and
day in and day out.
98% of them take it, Republicans and Democrats. I know MSNBC, CNN, New York Times, NPR think that the Democrats are angels. Nancy Pelosi is an angel that floated from the sky, and she deserves to have the seat in the House and Feinstein's seat in the Senate. But no, they all take cash, cold hard cash, which are obvious bribes. But no, we don't want to talk about the actual cancer of corruption in government. So we're just gonna say, oh yeah, maybe it was Hunter Biden's art or gas deals, etc. So, and on Marjorie Taylor Greene, no one's ever heard of impeaching someone for something they did before they became president. So what are we gonna, we're gonna go back now, by the way? So if Trump wins, now we're gonna go back to, well, on his second week in office, last term, he did something wrong, so we're gonna impeach him for that. And we're gonna go back to what he did at The Apprentice, and we're gonna impeach him for that. This is unprecedented horse crap, okay? Yeah. So, okay, and this Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz in a competition of Dumb and Dumber is just—
it's entertaining.
It's a little entertaining and it's a little pathetic. But go ahead, try to win that contest. And I guarantee you if they heard that, they'd be like, oh yeah, I am gonna win. I'm gonna be dumber. She's only gonna be dumb. Okay, congrats. Okay, and last thing on the politicians on the Republican side, look, Don Bacon's trying to save his bacon. He's in a purple district, and I understand why he doesn't want to do it. And there's a number of Republicans that way. By the way, you could pressure them to actually pass policies that would help the American people. But Ken Buck is a rare guy who's a Republican and Freedom Caucus, super right wing. And he's like, yeah, no, I'm not gonna go for it. You guys are lying, there's no evidence, this isn't constitutional, and I'm not going to participate in this sham. So there's a super hard right winger that I will give credit to.
Finally, I just want to share with you all how Senator John Fetterman feels about this whole debacle. He has some important things to say about the matter. Let's watch.
Ask you about this news that Speaker McCarthy has formally launched an impeachment or has said he's going to.
Oh my God, really? Oh my gosh, it's devastating. Ooh, don't do it. Please don't do it. Oh no.
My thoughts exactly. Like, come on. It's just
and
so
by the way,
ridiculous.
that's the right attitude. Mock them. Don't take them seriously. They're a bunch of clowns. God, man, Fetterman, that stroke was the worst stroke of luck in history. He could easily be running for president and crushing right now if he hadn't had that stroke.
All right, when we come back from the break, we have yet another individual who is involved in the riots on January 6th, who's been sentenced. We'll tell you who he is. Spoiler alert, he's tied to Alex Jones. We'll give you the details when we come back, don't miss it.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk, Anna, Davey Hyde, and Jake Teal. They're American heroes who hit the join button below the video on YouTube. And then Vicky Gray and Canadian Moose Rider both gave 5 Young Turks memberships on YouTube, and Madam Power gifted 1. You guys are all amazing. Thank you, guys. We do the show together, and we love that you're here. And we got more interesting news for you guys right now.
Do Canadians ride mooses? And is mooses the correct way of using the plural form?
No,
of moose?
it's meese.
It's meese?
Ed Meese. No, I have no idea. Canadians, you tell us. You're the moose experts.
Okay. All right, moving on. InfoWars host Owen Schroyer has been sentenced to 2 months in prison for his role in the Capitol riots on January 6th. Now, Schroyer pleaded guilty to 1 misdemeanor count of entering and remaining on restricted grounds in June of 2023. That was a separate matter, which he took a deal on. And even though he didn't enter the Capitol building itself on the day of January 6th, he did trespass, and as a result of that, and as a result of breaking a prior agreement having to do with a different prosecution, he is now going to serve 2 months behind bars. So what exactly did Schroyer do? So prosecutors charged Schroyer because he had previously signed a deferred prosecution agreement after interrupting a congressional hearing in 2019. It was actually an impeachment hearing for President Trump at the time, and had agreed as part of that case not to utter loud, threatening, or abusive language, or to engage in any disorderly or disruptive conduct at any place upon the United States Capitol grounds. Well, he kind of broke that promise, and as a result, he violated the deferred prosecution agreement. Now, court documents state that in the weeks prior to the Capitol riots, Schroyer spread election disinformation on the InfoWars show that he hosts, which is unsurprising to me considering what InfoWars is really branded as. He later traveled to the Capitol where he said the following. In a video posted to the InfoWars website on January 5th, 2021, Schroyer gave an address in Freedom Plaza in Washington, D.C., during which he stated, "Americans are ready to fight. We're not exactly sure what that's going to look like, perhaps in a couple of weeks if we can't stop this certification of the fraudulent election. We are the new revolution. We are going to restore and we are going to save the republic." Then on January 6th, Schroyer marched with his supporters right on over to the Capitol and said things like this to the rioters. "Democrats are posing as communists, but we know what they really are. They're just tyrants. They're tyrants," Schroyer said on the bullhorn. And so today, on January 6th, we declare death to tyranny, death to tyrants. Again, very clear violation of that deferred prosecution agreement. Had he not had a deferred prosecution agreement in place, which he then violated, it's very unlikely that he would serve time behind bars. So Schroyer argued to the judge that he was actually just When he was yelling on that bullhorn and trying to incite the rioters, he wasn't actually trying to incite the rioters at all, Cenk. He was just trying to diffuse the situation.
Death to tyrants is diffusing the situation.
Schroyer argued to the judge that he was actually trying to get the mob's attention so he could help Alex Jones, who was also present at the Capitol, and guide the crowd away from the building.
Oh, yeah.
Surprisingly, the judge didn't buy that argument and disagreed with it, saying his review of the video of Schroyer's actions did not appear to show Schroyer making an attempt to play a de-escalating role.
Yeah, I think where the call to kill the people inside the building doesn't really feel like de-escalation, because tyranny, of course, is referring to government. And they're right in front of the government building where there's the government officials. So when he says the death to tyrants, it's not theoretical anymore. They're about to break into the building and they have nooses, they have gallows, and they're chanting "Hang Mike Pence."
I don't know, Cenk. I mean, people disagree on definitions of things, so.
Oh yeah, could or maybe he death to tyrants meant let's bring them some roses. Okay, well, we're in InfoWars, nothing makes sense anyway, so facts, words, logic, nothing matters. All right, but there is something very important in this story. So, and it's not Schroyer's Amish beard that he's walking around with for no reason. Why?
We will allow it.
I don't know that I will allow it. Grow a mustache, become a human, become a grown up.
I think he's trying to, but anyway.
Okay, anyways, all right. No, guys, here's the big deal. Cooperation on what? Cooperation to do what? So Alex Jones comes to mind. Are they trying to get him to turn on Alex Jones? And so look, by the way, Schroyer does the same thing that the coward Alex Jones and the coward Donald Trump did. Go into the building, go get him. Oh, you can't get killed, that's the tyrant. We'll see you guys later. They go grab a sub. Go grab a sandwich or a steak or something. They're like, yeah, we're not gonna go with the schmucks. These are the same idiots that we sell penis pills to and brain pills to. Yeah, you guys go commit the crimes and we're gonna go hang out and have a fancy lunch with Trump or whatever. But incite, and then run away like little bitches. And so that's Schroyer and Alex Jones for you. The only question is whether they've turned on each other.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the cooperation part of this story really means or what it entails. I know that prosecutors, in regard to his involvement on January 6th, had initially asked for 120 days for his sentence, but he eventually received 60 days, meaning 2 months behind bars. We'll see how it develops, but play stupid games, win stupid prizes. And I think that's been the overarching message in this whole January 6th debacle, right? Be used as a puppet for Donald Trump to do his dirty dealings and see what the consequences are. And the consequences have been very dire for many of these people. The fact that he got 2 months behind bars is honestly a very lucky sentence considering what others have been sentenced to.
So there's a million differences between the progressives and the planet lunatic. But one of them is we're constantly telling people don't do anything physical, don't do anything violent. That's crazy. Revolutions mean political revolutions. You do that through amendments and laws. You deliver for the American people. What do they say? Just the tyrants. Oh, by the way, they're right there. Okay, and the shootings are no big deal. They're all crisis actors anyway. The real problem is the parents. And so they have had the lunatics go chase the parents around the country. Nearly killed them, etc. And then he has to pay a giant thing. And now he's basically trying to figure out how to money launder all of his money so that he doesn't comply with court orders. They don't believe in law and order at all. They don't believe in the rule of law. And so look, but from time to time I make a plea to Republican voters because half of them are cuckoo, but half of them just are frustrated. And they have the same problems that we do, they've just been misdirected, right? I make no plea to Alex Jones' audience. You guys go nuts, too late, you already are. Do whatever you want, buy his stupid brain pills, you're hopeless. So you guys I give up on, enjoy your lunacy on whichever goddamn plane of the multiverse you're in.
Okay, all right, let's move on to another investigation. I mean, that's what Congress is up to these days, just one investigation after another. This one, though, I think makes sense, so let's get right to it.
Congressman, it's clear the president's son Hunter will be involved in any potential impeachment inquiry in some shape or form. Recently, you urged Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer, the Republican, to investigate Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, for his foreign business dealings, especially with the Saudis. Why didn't Democrats do more to investigate Kushner when you were in the majority? The Republicans have succeeded in turning Hunter into a boogeyman, even though Hunter never worked a day in the White House. Yet Jared, who did, is doing just fine.
MSNBC host Mehdi Hasan grilled House Oversight Committee ranking member Jamie Raskin for basically slow-walking investigations into Jared Kushner's deals with Saudi Arabia. Now, rather than answer the question directly, Raskin kind of deflected by recounting the allegations themselves. Let's take a quick look at that.
Well, remember, Jared's essential crime against the Constitution and the Republic came right after the Trump administration ended. It was, I think, the day after it ended that he created the corporation, which he proceeded to endow with $2 billion from the homicidal crown prince of Saudi Arabia and then other sovereign wealth funds from Gulf monarchs. So all of this is an ongoing story right now in the Biden administration. And of course, the Republicans are in control of the House just narrowly by 4 votes. But even Chairman Comer has conceded that Jared Kushner crossed an ethical line. And so all we're saying is, look, Jared Kushner was actually working in the White House. He was in the administration. Hunter Biden was never in the Biden administration.
I get that. I'm just wondering why you didn't do this earlier.
And Mehdi Hasan is correct in asking that question because it's been, what, 2.5 years? Yep. Ever since this whole situation, suspicious issue came up. So for context, let's give you guys a refresher on this. So a few weeks ago, Congressman Jamie Raskin requested that the House Oversight Committee Chair James Comer subpoena Kushner for more information on his dealings with the Saudis. In fact, he's saying so while talking to Jake Tapper. While talking to Jake Tapper, James Comer even admitted that there were some ethical concerns in regard to Jared Kushner's dealings with the Saudis. So as soon as the Trump administration was over, he forms this private equity firm and takes this massive amount of money from the Saudis. I'm gonna give you more details on that in just a moment. But look, if you happen to be more conservative and you're like, I'm watching a progressive show, they're probably lying because we're talking about Republicans here. Don't take it from me, take it from James Comer, a Republican lawmaker.
Jared Kushner, 6 months after he leaves the White House, gets $2 billion from the Saudi sovereign wealth fund when Donald Trump had put him in a position to be in the Middle East. What was Jared Kushner doing in the Middle East?
Again, sir, it all stinks to me. It all stinks.
Yeah, look, and I've been vocal that I think that what Kushner did crossed the line of ethics. But what Christie said, it happened after he left office. Still no excuse, Jake, but it happened after he left office.
Yes, it happened after he left office, but also he forged all sorts of relationships in his role in the White House. And what he specifically did is he formed that private equity firm called Affinity Partners just after leaving the White House. The Saudi government provided huge investments to the firm along with other Gulf nations. Kushner reportedly took $2 billion from a sovereign wealth fund chaired by Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, the same individual that Donald Trump tried to provide cover for after he ordered the assassination and dismemberment of Washington Post journalist and US resident Jamal Khashoggi. During the Trump administration, Kushner had been tasked with managing Middle East policy and worked closely with Mohammed bin Salman. And also a report from The Intercept during the Trump years found that MBS bragged about having Kushner in his pocket. Kushner was also deeply involved in a $110 billion weapons sale to Saudi Arabia back in 2017. I recall when right-wingers like Alex Jones pretended to be concerned about Saudi Arabia and tried to blame Democrats for their close ties with Saudi Arabia. Really interesting that he had nothing to say about that when the Trump administration was very much enmeshed in Saudi business deals.
No, it's over, right-wingers. Your favorite country is now Saudi Arabia. So Donald Trump and Jared Kushner are both making millions upon millions of dollars from Saudi Arabia. They gave every favor in the world. They let him dismember a journalist that worked for the Washington Post. The allegations from The Intercept are that Jared Kushner gave our sources inside Saudi Arabia to Mohammed bin Salman, and one of them was tortured to death. If a Democrat had done that, you're talking about Hunter Biden's art? If Hunter Biden had turned over sources that he got from his dad and they got tortured to death by Muslim fundamentalists, tell me that you wouldn't be seeing red. Tell me that you wouldn't be the most irate people on planet Earth. But when your beloved Donald Trump does the corruption and his beloved son-in-law, and they take $2 billion off the Saudis, all of a sudden you're perfectly okay with it. Oh, the Saudis, they have the same exact moral code as ISIS. But all of a sudden you guys love the Saudis. I mean, come on. Have you no shame at all? Let alone all the golf tournaments, all of a sudden the Saudis get live. They buy the PGA and they direct all the golf tournaments to Donald Trump's properties. And James Comer's so disingenuous. He's like, Hunter Biden's $5 million for something. I'm so mad about it. $2 billion for Jared Kushner. It was after office. He got the payment after office for things he did while he was in office.
Exactly. Some more suspicious stuff happening with this whole deal with the Saudis. So there's even a panel that screens investments for the Saudi Sovereign Wealth Fund. They had concerns over Kushner and his firm. They had concerns with the $2 billion from the Sovereign Wealth Fund being funneled over to Kushner's brand new private equity firm. So in 2022, the New York Times looked at the panel's objections seriously, and they looked at previously undisclosed documents from the panel's meeting, which took place on June 30th of 2021. Here's where they found some issues. Here are their concerns: the inexperience of the affinity fund management, the possibility that the kingdom would be responsible for the bulk of the investment and risk, due diligence on the fledgling firm's operations that found them unsatisfactory in all aspects, a proposed asset management fee that seems excessive, public relations risks from Mr. Kushner's prior role as a senior advisor to his father-in-law, former President Donald J. Trump. But the Saudi Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman, overruled the panel, and the Saudi fund invested twice as much with Kushner compared to former Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin, even though Mnuchin had a successful investment record as a Wall Street goon and all of that. Now, Mnuchin was also a part of Trump's cabinet, as you all know, from 2017 to 2021. The debate within the Saudi fund over investing in Kushner's firm was in clear contrast to the easy approval of Mnuchin's proposal. Mnuchin's fund focused on cybersecurity, financial technology, and entertainment, aligning with Saudi priorities, while Kushner's firm lacked a clear focus.
Yeah. So guys, the national security community was outraged by Jared Kushner at some point in the Trump administration. You might remember that story. And they pulled his clearance. They said he is not to get the presidential daily briefings anymore, even though he was running our foreign policy in a lot of ways, and especially in the Middle East. The Intercept's reporting seems to indicate that they pulled it because Kushner gave over the names of our guys inside Saudi Arabia. And those are the ones that MBS arrested, stole from, tortured, and one of them was killed. So if they prove that, and someone should try very hard, I'm not saying try to prove something that didn't happen, but if there's any chance that that happened, Jared Kushner should spend the rest of his life in jail. So, and this is worse than Hunter Biden, and not just because of this, the magnitude of the money, billions of dollars, right? And not because of the magnitude of the potential crime, which might have literally gotten people killed, right? But also think about how outrageous it is. So everybody knows that Hunter Biden is not an expert on Ukrainian gas and modern art at the same time. He's running every 2-bit scam there is in the country, which makes it more similar to Donald Trump than it does to Joe Biden. But we already talked endlessly about the no connection to Joe Biden there's been no evidence of that, right? But guys, it's as absurd as Hunter's claims to expertise are, Jared's is worse, because not only, like you say, well, he's run investments before and he's done real estate investments. That's right. And he has potentially the worst record in American history. He bought what is considered to be the worst real estate investment we have ever had in this country. 666 Fifth Avenue, right before the 2008 crash, nearly bankrupted his entire family, who was loaded. And that he is one of the dumbest investors in the world right now. And they give that guy $2 billion. This stuff is proven. This is not conjecture. You can look up 666 Fifth Avenue and how disastrous it was. No sane investor in their right mind would give a nickel to Jared Kushner, let alone $2 billion, which he makes $25 million a year from, even if he loses all the money. $25 million at a bare minimum per year. It makes all of Hunter Biden's scams look like child's play. Kushner looks at him and goes, amateur. And in your case, you didn't even get Dad to do what you said.
Right.
I got Trump to do everything I wanted. Okay.
Which is why the investigation is an important one, and which is why I agree with Mehdi Hasan's line of questioning here. Why did it take Jamie Raskin so long to call on the House Oversight Committee Chair, James Comer, to open an investigation into Jared Kushner? In fact, final video on that exchange, let's watch.
You know, I think we've been doing everything we can to try to catch up with what we know. And what we're trying to find out is exactly what did Saudi Arabia get out of this arrangement and what is the nature of all the money that's been pouring in. Now, we know that they covered up the assassination of Jamal Khashoggi, the drawing and quartering by the paid assassins who were sent by the crown prince.
Yes.
We know that they were aligned with Saudi Arabia in the Yemen war, and they went there first. You know, that was the first foreign trip that Donald Trump took. So they got a lot out of it, and we were talking about all of that at the time. But look, we're going to do a complete report on foreign government emoluments that were pocketed by Donald Trump, and we're still trying to torture out the information, which we've never gotten.
Torture out, interesting phrase in this context. But I do think that this is one of the investigations that makes a lot of sense. So hopefully they move forward with that. We'll see where it goes.
Okay, I want to give a word here to one of our members. Cenk's Left Tricep of Fury wrote in, as much as I respect Raskin, that's a legit question and he needs to answer that.
Agreed.
So good catch, by the way, tyt.com/join to become a member and be part of the show. Raskin never answered the question. And the question isn't, why didn't you do something 6 months ago or 4 months ago when the Republicans were already in charge? The real question is, why didn't you do anything when you were in charge for the first 2 years of the Biden term? Now, look, but important context here. Jamie Raskin is not the bad guy. Jamie Raskin is now bringing up the Jared Kushner issue when no other Democrat will. Why they wouldn't bring that up is insanity. It's totally inexplicable. So thank you, Jamie Raskin, for bringing it up. And Jamie Raskin is about at least twice as aggressive as the average Democrat. The problem is, even the most aggressive guys like Jamie Raskin, who are now bringing it up as an issue, are still 2,000 times less aggressive than the average Republican. Like, the Republicans will take the molehill and make 2,000 mountains out of it. And the Democrats will take they'll take Mount Everest and go, molehill? Come on, guys, get in the goddamn game. Mehdi Hasan, great line of questioning, but don't blame Jamie Raskin. He's at least trying, as opposed to all the other Democrats.
When we come back from the break, we will show you uncomfortable videos of senators reciting raunchy passages from books they don't like.
Back on TYT, Cenk, Uygur, Anna Kasparian, Ghost Dragon, and Robin Mitchell. Anna.
Well, this one's a doozy, so buckle up for this. The Senate decided to probe the issue of library book bans today. And unfortunately, you're about to hear some, well, videos of Senator John Kennedy, of all people, basically reading passages from books that he feels and other Republicans in the Senate feel should be banned from school libraries. So without further ado, earmuff the kids and get ready for this.
All boys aren't blue. And I will quote from it. I put some lube on and got him on his knees. And I began to slide into him from behind. I pulled out of him and kissed him while he masturbated. He asked me to turn over while he slipped a condom on himself. This was my ass, and I was struggling to imagine someone inside me. He got on top and slowly inserted himself into me. It was the worst pain I think I have ever felt in my life. Eventually, I felt a mix of pleasure with the pain. Close quote. All boys aren't blue.
So that happened. That was from the book All Boys Aren't Blue, and I will admit that it was a little raunchy. A
little blue, ironically.
Yeah.
Some boys apparently are blue.
No.
Okay, we're gonna get to the essence of this and whether he's right or wrong. And don't make assumptions.
Don't make assumptions.
You might be wrong. But my favorite line was, "That was my ass."
I know.
Okay.
I know.
It's like a pervy Dr. Seuss. Or when I first started watching, I was like, "Is this a confession?"
No, it was not a good idea in my opinion. Like, I probably would not have read the book aloud, right?
Well, look, like all senators, he's 98 years old. But if he ever runs for re-election, that might get used in an ad.
And look, to be fair, he's trying to make a point, and I do think it's a legitimate point. We're gonna get to that in just a moment, okay? But first, more.
Called genderqueer. Okay. Let me read an excerpt from that. Quote. I got a new strap-on harness today. I can't wait to put it on you. It will fit my favorite dildo perfectly. You're going to look so hot. I can't wait to have your in my mouth. I'm going to give you the blowjob of your life. Then I want you inside of me. End quote.
You know, if Senator Kennedy decided to have a little bit of a side hustle as a phone sex operator, maybe.
Yeah,
maybe.
I'm thinking of having him read Justice is Coming.
No, don't do it, don't do it. Something's coming, but it ain't justice.
Oh! Then I got a strap-on harness.
Okay.
I'm not even kidding, put it away, Kennedy.
Okay.
Put it away.
Listen,
and then the dildo went up and to the left. Up and to the left.
It's a serious matter. Despite us acting like school children right now, this is a serious matter having to do with school children.
Okay, well, kind of.
Sort of, yeah. Now look, the whole point of this hearing was to discuss book bans in school libraries. That has been a hot button issue. I do think that both sides have kind of been talking over each other. And what I don't take kindly to is how corporate media has covered this story, because they tend to hyper focus on pretty harmless books, like the book about penguins adopting a baby penguin that needed a family, right? There was nothing wrong with that book, but why focus on that when it's very clear that there are very specific titles that conservatives have issues with, conservative parents have issues with, and I would venture to say even liberal parents would have issues with if they knew that these books were available in their school libraries. Now look, it really depends on where they're available. Are they available in high school libraries? And if that's the case, I have news for you guys. Your kids have heard much, much worse, have seen much, much worse, if they have a phone especially, right?
And they just heard it from the senator from Louisiana.
True.
That's now on the internet, and that is, are you kidding me? They're gonna make so many shorts out of that, and it's gonna be in a million TikTok videos. And kids are now infinitely more likely to have heard it book. Because of John Kennedy, let alone more likely to read the book,
100%.
Right? So, but I actually don't think it's about the books. I'll get to my opinion on that in a second. I think what he's most right about is who gets to decide. And that was the main question he was asking the witnesses. And I was really annoyed at the witnesses for not having a good answer.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And I don't know how that process works, right? And look, I do think that, okay, so it's interesting because I doubt that any student even knew that either All Boys Aren't Blue or Genderqueer were available in their libraries.
They know
right?
now.
They know now, right? And so now there's like this race to ban them from school libraries.
Before all high school kids could go get them.
And I want to be clear, there have been instances of high school libraries that have contained these titles. But despite what you hear from conservatives, I have yet to see an actual example or actual evidence of this being available to like elementary school students. Now, a little more detail on the hearing itself. So it's titled Book Bans Examining How Censorship Limits Liberty and Literature. And remember, this is in the Senate, so I'm gonna assume that this was a hearing that was called by Democrats since they still control the Senate. Now, the hearing on the book bans was called as multiple Republican-led states have made it easier for books to be challenged in classrooms, and as school board meetings have been flooded with arguments on what is appropriate for children to read. Illinois, for instance, recently passed a law banning the banning of books in public schools and libraries. The law directs public libraries in the state to adopt or write their own versions of a library bill of rights, such as the American Library Association's, which asserts that materials should not be prescribed or removed because of partisan or doctrinal disapproval. And because of this, some members of the Illinois state government have basically tried to defend their efforts to keep these books in place. Now, after his pretty remarkable quotes, Senator Kennedy then addressed Illinois Secretary of State Alexi Giannoulis, and this person was present at the hearing to answer some of the questions by senators. So let's have a look at how this conversation went down.
Mr. Secretary, what are you asking us to do? Are you suggesting that only librarians should decide whether the two books that I just referenced should be available to kids? Is that what you're saying?
No.
You do.
With all due respect, Senator, the words you spoke are disturbing, especially coming out of your mouth is very disturbing. But I would also tell you that we're not advocating for kids to read porn, to Senator Booker's point.
What are you advocating for?
We are advocating for random parents not to have the ability, under the guise of keeping kids safe, to try and challenge the world view of every single manner on these issues.
I want to know what you're recommending. It sounds to me like what some of you are saying, the librarians should decide who gets to see that book.
I'm saying when individual parents are allowed to make a decision of where that line is, and To Kill a Mockingbird, which involves a rape scene, should that book be pulled from our libraries? I think it becomes a slippery slope.
I think that there is some truth to the slippery slope argument, to be quite honest with you. But the idea that no, it's up to the parents, that's a ridiculous argument. I mean, it wasn't that long ago I was in school and I remember going to the library and checking out books. I didn't need my parents' permission to check out whatever book I wanted to read. So look, I do think that for some parents, the material in these specific books is disturbing and they would like to have a little more control over what their kids see. I think that age matters quite a bit. So if I have elementary school kids reading this kind of stuff, I can understand the worries about that. High school kids, as I've mentioned already, they've already seen things that are far worse. But I don't know what the right answer is, Cenk, because I don't want the slippery slope.
Yeah.
I do think it's important to avoid book bans as far as we can, right? But at the same time, I do think there's some material that is inappropriate for young children.
Yeah, good news, I have the answer.
Oh, okay.
So first I'm gonna start with the tenor of the books, and then I'm gonna get to what the right standard is. So look, guys, are there some books that are too extreme that are going into for kids that are too young? I think that there are. So, but there's, from my understanding, from the evidence that the right wing has presented, it is very few. Okay, so that doesn't mean we shouldn't do anything about it. And so the left saying, okay, that's it, I don't want it, they don't exist, or I don't care that they exist, are not good answers, okay? On the other hand, is that the predominant problem? No, I think the predominant problem is that the right wing is pretending that it's some sort of epidemic when they found 2 books in the whole country. Go crazy, 7 books in the whole country that could present a problem, and we're not even sure it's really going to young kids or to high school kids, right? And so instead, what they're doing is they're focusing on almost all books related to LGBTQ folks because they're targeting them. And then they started focusing on books that have African Americans. For what reason? That's not even related to anything we're discussing, right? And so it's super obvious that the Republicans have an agenda, and the agenda is to drive hate. But then don't give them their excuse. So how do you resolve it then? Because Kennedy is actually, believe it or not, asking a legitimate question. We're the fairest show in America. We tell you what things really are, not based on right wing, left wing, etc. Okay? So his question is, well, you're saying the librarians should decide. And the guy says, no, not just the librarians. Okay, then who? And he says, well, it can't be just rando parents. That's true. So, but he asked all the witnesses and none of them gave him a clear answer. So here's my proposal for a clear answer. So the librarian decides, but if parents have a specific objection to a specific book, not, hey, I want to remove all the books that mention gay people, I want to remove all the books that talk about African American history, etc. You have a specific book like the one that he read, you bring it to the school board. That's how we decide things. Now, school boards have been a mess, but that's okay. Look, if you come in there and yell at them and go, oh, you guys are part of the gay agenda of the deep state, that doesn't help at all. Okay, I mean, go ahead, do it, but you should be laughed out of the building.
No,
but if you come in, hold on, if you come in with a real book like this and say, hey guys, this is for our 3rd graders, the rebuttable presumption should be that the librarian gets to make that decision. But you can, this is a legal standard, but you can rebut that presumption. You can say, hey, here's the book, 3rd graders can access it, can we please take it off? And then the school board can vote on that. Don't worry, it's not gonna take up too much of their time because there's only 3 or 4 of these books in the whole country that are at issue. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do see what you're saying. And in regard to parents who want to get involved, they have been getting involved, and it goes much further than just showing up at school board meetings to yell at people. A lot of them have started running for the school boards and winning elections. Moms for Liberty, for instance, I believe they've won about 50% of the school board elections that they have engaged in. And so, look, that's democracy. That's how democracy works. If you don't like the outcome of that as a more liberal parent, well, then you got to get involved and you got to have more of a say over what the school board decides in regard to your child's education. But I really like your idea. I think that that would be a good way to adjudicate this whole situation. The final thing I'll say about this entire debacle is I find it fascinating that most of the focus has been on preventing children from reading certain books, when in reality, there's a huge problem in the country with a giant percentage of American students who don't even know how to read. That is a big problem. Our education is a mess right now. There are no hearings about that. There are no hearings about how few, every year the percentage of American students who have difficulty reading expands. Maybe take that issue seriously as well as we demagogue about book titles and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, I think Moms for Liberty are a really harmful group. I don't agree with them on almost anything. But yeah, it's a democracy. They get to run for the school board, run against them, beat them. And by the way, if it turns out they take the school board and then they start teaching wacky, crazy stuff to your kids, that sucks. And so it puts you in a super difficult spot, but we can't get rid of democracy. At the end of the day, that local community has to decide what do they stand for. And if they stand for bigotry against gay people, black people, etc., that is just awful, and there's some outer limits to it. You cannot violate constitutional rights, okay? But having said that, we've got to get in there and fight the good fight. We can't just say, no, I'm not having a conversation about any books. No, they don't exist, or no, they shouldn't be allowed to run for the school board. No, you've got to go in there and defeat them with facts and persuade your community to do the right thing.
All right, we got to take a break. When we come back for the second hour of the show, we're going to give you an update on what could be one of the largest worker strikes in the country, having to do with the auto workers. Yes, and then after that, we'll also discuss a little bit of what the governor in New Mexico has done in regard to gun control. Some are saying that it's unconstitutional. You don't want to miss the details on that. That and more coming up. Don't miss it.
Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, and I'll see you soon.